I know what you're thinking. This is a series about apartments. Why are you showing me a house? The reason I'm showing you a house is because it's actually very useful with regards to building things in small spaces that don't feel small. This is my FC house. It's on Midgardsorma, and I decorated it myself, much to the annoyance of my friend, who really wished that they'd had some say in it, but I'm very proud of what I've done. So this is a house of two halves. The upstairs is smaller than an apartment. The downstairs is one segment longer than an apartment would be. So the way that I measure segments is with these pillars on the wall. This is one shorter than an apartment would be, the one downstairs is one longer. So this is a single room. It's based on Café Le Bon from Persona 5, as you can probably tell from the NPC outside. And I've used quite a few housing tricks here to lend vertical decoration. So I've done the thing that I mentioned in the first video with the lanterns, to provide some additional lighting. If I was clever, I would have done a string down from the ceiling as well. I am not, so I didn't. The sofas are semi-usable. You can go over to them and you can sit on them, but they're a little bit too close to the table for my liking. I needed to do them that way in order to get enough of them in. Ideally I would have had a third one. I tried to fit a third one. It made the place feel too cramped, so I decided that it feeling correct was more important. The table I'm quite happy with. The fact that I managed to fit everything in, I'm very happy with. This is the smallest space that you get given to decorate in the game, and I'm happy that I managed to capture the feel correctly, while leaving the entrance to additional chambers still available, making things like the plant pots available to use. That's another principle, is you need to think about what amenities you would like and where they fit into your design. So I've got the summoning bell as well here, and that's quite helpful, probably the number one thing that I use in here. They're all readily available, they're all straight where you enter, so that you can just pop in and pop out again. That's definitely something to consider in your design, but I mean, summoning bells are available elsewhere as well. So this is the first section. This is smaller than an apartment, and I'd say that it both feels functional. It doesn't feel like I was hampered by the space, and it also feels not cramped. So this is the second half of the build. So this is the real reason why I wanted to show you the house, which is that I have installed a second story. This build is the same height as an apartment, so there is no additional ceiling space here. The ceiling space available is the ceiling space that you in an apartment also have. The only thing that I have is an extra segment of length on the room. It's the same width and it's the same height. So the number one thing that I really made sure to do with this build was to make use of every single little space that I could, to make a little vignette, or a little nook or cranny, and if it felt dank, then I put an extra light in. You can put lights inside of things like stages, in order to be able to illuminate the space without having an actual lantern visible. You can really use the underneath spaces, and there's a new housing item that came out this patch that is actually a loft with lights installed on it, to produce really cozy, nice feeling spaces. This is just 2 segments long, and 2 segments wide. You would be able to fit this in an apartment, no problem, and still have plenty of space for other things. This is something that I'm still really pleased with. It feels really cozy. This was my number 1 AFK spot through a lot of the Shadowbringers patches, and it comes out underneath the stairs. So I've made use of the understair space as well, and then we go up the stairs to the next space. This is where the floating glitches really come in handy, and also making creative use of partitions. So for example, this bookshelf, the fact that its bookshelf on one side and wall on the other side really helps to lend a sense of space to the space. Having rugs down helps lend space to the space because it provides a visual barrier that sort of tells your brain, no, I really am moving through a space here. So we have a little den up here for watching TV. Wall-mounted shelves are really useful because it means you can put decorations without having to float them up. But I remember being really pleased when I managed to get all these things floated up here, feeling nice and cozy. Sometimes, especially if you've done a mezzanine like this, these spaces can feel a little corridory, but I'm actually quite pleased with this just because what I wanted for it to feel like a space where you would have presentations down on the map table and people would gather around, and if there wasn't enough space then people could come upstairs and watch down from the mezzanine or sit on the stage, and it really feels like a space like that, and I'm very pleased with how it came out. Second stories are completely feasible with minimal housing glitches unless you want to furnish them. Again, I used a lot of windows here to help the space feel more open and less cramped, and then fewer windows upstairs or smaller windows to help it feel more cozy. I think having the downstairs space be more open and the upstairs one be more cozy is a good way of reversing expectations and therefore making the space feel bigger, because every time you turn a corner and find something that you didn't expect, you are making the space feel bigger. Almost everything here you could fit in an apartment, no problem. I would say that there's probably about a segment of wiggle room in this, especially when you consider the fact that the staircase wouldn't be taking up room in an apartment. Don't be afraid to try things, and if it doesn't work out, just stick the furniture in storage. You never know what you will use it for. The number one lessons from this build, I would say, are don't be afraid to put a second story in. It is completely feasible within an apartment space, and I strongly recommend it. You can even do an entire second floor, which I'm going to show you in my other house. And lastly, don't be afraid to do a partition where the partition is effectively two items. One colour on one side and the other colour on the other side, because it does lend a sense of space to it. The number one example of this is this partition here, where it's a wall on one side and on the other side I've used a bookshelf. It makes it feel like the spaces are better differentiated and less like it's all just one big room, which it kind of is.